Corrie McKeague becomes a father at the age of 23, but he never gets to see his little daughter. Before the baby is born, or he even finds out that his girlfriend is pregnant, Corrie disappears. And this despite the fact that his job as a soldier should have afforded him better protection than most people. Nevertheless, Corrie McKeague is never found. And there is good reason to believe that this will remain the case forever. Corrie McKeague lives in one of the safest places in Great Britain, on the RAF Honington base, a Royal Air Force base. Corrie is Scottish and has been with the RAF for a few years. He didn't have an easy time at school. As a teenager, he had to watch a friend of his die in an accident. This threw him off track, and his performance at school suffered as a result. On top of that, there was the usual partying that is part of life for many young people. But when he joined the RAF, Corrie got his life back on track. He was determined to complete his training and stuck with it. With success, he was accepted and soon became a popular comrade. Corrie still likes to party and has a classic, "you only live once" mentality. This is partly due to the accidental death of his girlfriend back then. But he has also grown up. He manages to strike a good balance between his free time and his job, and feels completely at home at RAF Honington. The British military airbase is located in the middle of nowhere in East England. The nearest town is a small town called Bury St. Edmunds. Edmunds. Because there are no other alternatives, Corrie and his comrades often go there to party. For the town, on the other hand, the proximity to the airbase is naturally an economic advantage. The station soldiers like to come to Bury to shop or party. This was also the case on September 23, 2016. Corrie and a few comrades have vaguely agreed to go out partying in Bury that evening. In the run-up to the evening, the plans get a little mixed up. Two friends independently decide to give Corrie a lift in their cars. So Corrie is left behind at the airbase while his comrades set off. In retrospect, it almost seems like a bad omen, as if fate was somehow trying to prevent Corrie from going to Bury that evening. But Corrie wouldn't be Corrie if he didn't just set off on his own. The 23-year-old is extroverted and loves being around people, and a minor misunderstanding isn't going to stop him from partying. He sets off for Bury in his BMW. Once there, he calls his brother Derek on his cell phone. The two talk for a good 45 minutes starting at 10 p.m. Meanwhile, Corrie warms up with a bottle of rosé. After the phone call, Corrie goes to the So Bar, where his friends are already partying. At 11:30 p.m., the group moves on to Wetherspoons, a popular pub chain. Corrie meets many acquaintances there, and the staff already knows the 23-year-old and his friends. Everything is going well at both the So Bar and Wetherspoons, with Corrie drinking, partying, and chatting with friends and acquaintances. However, he attracts negative attention at the next stop. The group arrives at the Flex Club at 12:30 a.m. After less than 30 minutes, Corrie is thrown out. The security staff think he is too drunk. The sources do not specify exactly how they came to this conclusion. They only say that he was apparently staggering a little and blew a kiss to the owner of the bar. When the bouncer asks him to leave, Corrie doesn't protest, but leaves the Flex immediately. His friends stay behind. Shortly after 1 a.m., he is now alone in Bury. He goes to a small pizza place called Pizza Mamma Mia and gets something to eat. 2 burgers, a kebab, and fries. It's quite a substantial meal, but as we all know, alcohol makes you hungry. However, he doesn't eat it all. He sits down to eat on a curb in front of Hughes, an electronics store, but falls asleep there, drunk. He lies there for about an hour. Fortunately, it's not particularly cold on this September night. Otherwise, this nap could have been very risky. But for Corrie McKeague, danger lurks elsewhere that night. At some point, Corrie gets up again. At 3:25 a.m., surveillance cameras film him walking into Brandgovell Street. He stops there briefly and seems to look around. Then he runs into an area called the Horseshoe, where there is not much apart from a few backyards and garbage cans. And since then, Corrie McKeague has disappeared without a trace. The Horseshoe has a pretty bad reputation in the area. You can imagine it as a kind of large backyard, where mostly trash cans from shops and residential buildings are lined up at the back. Because the area itself is not under video surveillance, it is often used for shady deals. But there's a catch, because there are 3 ways to access the Horseshoe. Brandgovell Street, which Corrie took according to the camera footage, Short Brackland Street, and a small walkway to a McDonald's restaurant. There are surveillance cameras on all 3 of these routes, so even if you're undisturbed in the square itself, anyone who enters it will inevitably be filmed on their way there, just like Corrie did at around 3:25 a.m. The thing is, none of the 3 cameras show Corrie leaving the Horseshoe. It's as if he vanished into thin air. It is not until Monday, 2.5 days after Corrie's disappearance, that his family is informed by the airbase about the disappearance of their son and brother. When Corrie's mother hears the news, alarm bells immediately start ringing. She has just heard something on the news that has shaken her to the core. 3 months earlier, there had been an incident at RAF Mayhem in Norfolk, about 30 miles from Corrie's airbase in Honington. An attempted kidnapping. The media reported that terrorism could not be ruled out as a motive. In other words, someone had deliberately tried to kidnap an RAF soldier, and she is worried that this is exactly what might have happened to her son. As you have just heard, Corrie was filmed by cameras in Bury St. Edmunds. Of course, Corrie is not the only one there. Between 3 and 5 a.m., there were 39 people in total, and they could all be important witnesses. The police are trying to identify them all, but 10 of the passers-by could never be found and therefore never questioned. The other people cannot provide any helpful information about his disappearance, so they turn their attention to the next lead, Corrie's cell phone data. Early on Saturday morning, Corrie's cell phone pings in the center of Bury. This matches the CCTV footage. Later that morning, however, the cell phone signal becomes quite creepy, because it's moving. At 8 a.m., Corrie's cell phone is logged in at Barton Mills, a few miles from Bury. What's there is rather disturbing. A landfill site. The bins in Horseshoe are emptied and their contents are taken by the garbage truck to the exact location where Corrie's cell phone last logged in at 8 a.m. This can only mean 2 things. The first possibility is that Corrie's cell phone somehow ended up in one of the trash cans and is now on its way to Barton Mills. In any case, that's where the signal ends, and shortly after 8 a.m., the cell phone switches off. The second, more sinister possibility is much more likely. We know that Corrie was never filmed leaving the Horseshoe, and since his cell phone signal matches that of the trash cans, this gives rise to speculation that Corrie himself could have ended up in a trash container and been taken to the landfill. This also makes sense to the police, who contact the waste disposal company. What I didn't know, and maybe new to you, is that the company can somehow track how much weight each garbage truck is carrying. And on the morning after Corrie's disappearance, it was only 11 kilograms. On the one hand, that's surprisingly little. And on the other hand, it's obviously far too little for an adult man to have hidden somewhere among the trash. His cell phone, maybe, but definitely not a whole person. That's why the police decide against searching the Barton Mills landfill, and many people still can't understand that today. Because as I said, at least Corrie's cell phone could have been lying among the trash, or even had to be, if the GPS data matches the disposal times exactly. And his cell phone is important evidence in this investigation either way. 2 weeks after Corrie's disappearance, his girlfriend April finds out she is expecting a baby. In 2017, Corrie becomes the father of a daughter without ever knowing it. Corrie and April were active on swingers' websites during their 5-month relationship until his disappearance. The police investigate Corrie's profiles on such sites and do not rule out that this could have something to do with his disappearance. However, this has not led to any results in the investigation to date. Instead, there is soon a new development that turns everything upside down. Maybe you're still stuck on those 11 kilograms of trash. Even if there was only cardboard in the bin, that weight seems very little for an entire container, doesn't it? The investigators think so too, because after months of finding no other clues, they take another look at the garbage truck's weight data. And lo and behold, there has been a mistake. A big one. The weight of the garbage load on that day was not 11 kilograms at all. It was more than 100. And that means it could have been Corrie's body in there after all. In March 2017, an employee of the waste disposal company is even briefly arrested for allegedly obstructing the investigation. However, he is soon released. It is assumed that the incorrect data was really a mistake. However, this mistake has catastrophic consequences, because although the landfill is finally being searched, it is almost 6 months after Corrie's disappearance. Almost 100,000 tons of waste are dumped there every year, which now have to be combed through. To the police's credit, the landfill is searched very thoroughly from then on, over a period of months. But in July 2017, the search is called off without any results. Neither Corrie's remains nor his personal belongings have been found. Although the search has been called off, the police assume that Corrie's body was transported by the garbage truck and dumped at the landfill, and that he now lies among tens of thousands of tons of garbage. But even if that is the case, the question remains as to how and why Corrie ended up in one of the garbage cans. Okay, he was very drunk and very tired. He fell asleep on the curb while eating. But why would he have walked to the horseshoe and then laid down in a garbage can to sleep? His car was parked not far from the horseshoe and Barry. He could have just sat there to sleep. Following legal proceedings initiated by the family, Corrie McKeague has now been declared dead. After a 2-month investigation, a court will present its final report in May 2022. Based on the evidence, it is believed that Corrie McKeague climbed into a garbage can and ended up in a garbage truck. Consequently, Corrie died at the landfill site on the morning of September 24, 2016, from suffocation due to crushing in combination with multiple injuries. His death was caused by impaired judgment due to alcohol consumption. And so ends the life of Corrie McKeague. At the age of only 23 and with many, many unanswered questions. Corrie's family fought for years for further investigation. But at some point, the police stopped providing resources. The search for Corrie cost well over £1 million without anything being found. His mother still believes that an outsider must have been involved. But who could this person have been? Did Corrie see something at the horseshoe that he shouldn't have? Was he perhaps even meeting someone there? If so, it must have been one of the people the police were never able to question. Do you believe, like his mother, that someone else was involved? Or do you believe it was a tragic accident? Feel free to write your theories about this case in the comments. And very importantly, if you're out and about and alcohol or anything else is involved, look out for each other. I'm not saying this to blame Corrie's friends, but simply because it's extremely important. No matter what gender, how old, or how strong you are, when you're intoxicated, some things can happen faster than when you're sober. So with that in mind, keep an eye on your friends and acquaintances, and also on yourselves. If you want to support the channel, please leave a like, comment, and/or subscribe. Any interaction really helps the channel a lot. Other than that, there's not much else to say. Have a good morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on when you're watching this video, and I hope to see you again in the next video. Until then, bye guys.